On today's episode of Scientific Healing, you're going to hear a lot of people ask me that question, like, what am I going to feel? How's it going to be? Like, what do you do? Hello, everyone. You're listening to Scientific Healing Radio, and I'm your host, Dr. Anastasia Chopelas. I know the power of vibrational healing by combining physics and ancient healing arts to develop my own system that has produced medical miracles for thousands and thousands of people. Start your day focused and energized. Go to scientifichealer.com to get my free 11-minute Wake Up Your Brain healing audio. Today, we're going to talk about more in detail about what energy healing is about. So many people ask me, what is a session like? What can I expect? Will I be well with just one session? And today with me in conversation is my fabulous co-host, Gwen Leopard, who's also has done healing and experience. So you're going to get two for the price of one today. Hi, Gwen.
Yeah. Hi, Anastasia. It's so good to have you here. And you're right. You always hear what's going to happen. Am I going to be well right away? How does it work? And I know that you have that science behind you. So being able to explain it in a way that that others will get it.
Yes,
I got that, and so that's one reason why these shows are so important, and we hear of energy healing all the time, and so much of it is just glanced over. It's too woo. People don't understand it. So getting that understanding, what it is on a basic level, it's going to help more people embrace it. And since you're part of creating the bridge between energy medicine and conventional medicine, having that science to back it up, getting more people to embrace it is huge. So it's really helpful to have the science, and I know you're going to share some of that with us. Why don't we just jump right in?
Well, yeah, so exactly. And one of the things they expect is that in 10 or 15 minutes that I'll just wave a magic wand and poof, they're going to be all better.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way. And I hope by the end of this session or this banter, this conversation that we have going, that people will get a much better understanding on exactly what energy healing is. And in fact, a lot of it is actually, you can get insurance for it. You can,
Wow.
they're right. So acupuncture is one. That's something that they thought was outrageous years ago. I remember in the 90s that you couldn't get insurance for it, yet it was so effective at doing something. That is a form of energy healing because it's rerouting the energy systems of the body. And of course, in that case, it also, you don't wave a magic wand and get well, right?
Yes.
So
I love the thing that, you didn't get this way in 10 minutes or an hour session, an hour and a half session, or even 90 days. You didn't end up with what you have in 90 days. I mean, unless it's something acute, it's not going to, it takes time.
Yes, and a lot of it is from childhood traumas, like things
Absolutely.
we don't process when we're children.
Yeah.
Their, family dynamics, your own personal, what you do with yourself and your emotions. Like there are so many factors that are involved because frankly, we're complex beings. And,
we are.
For example, I was speaking with someone yesterday who's a very high achiever, and she just still was beating herself up over not getting to that place of perfection. So I said, so was it your mom or your dad? And she says, well, it was more my mom. And then I said, and now that you're an adult, you still are your mom in your head, right? So yeah. She went, oh, right. So, right. And this created a lot of problems in the body, and we're just in the process of unwinding it. So you hear the term raise your vibration, or more correctly, it's raise your frequency a lot. And what does that mean, really? Yeah. And in practical terms, it means how your body is doing here internally at the moment, and it's radiating out. I mean, every little atom or anything has a field around it and it radiates out. And we have, never mind atoms, we have cells that have millions and billions of atoms in each cell. And we have between, 40 and 70 trillion of these things in our body. That's how many cells we have.
Wow.
It's a huge number, and you can't even believe it. So if you imagine that each cell was the size of a grain of sand, it would weigh as much as 4 aircraft carriers, or 80 tons. That's how many cells in this little thing, right? In this little thing.
Or larger envelope. Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow,
so
really
let's look at something really simple. If you took a piece of metal and you raised it to over 200 degrees, so that's like about the point of boiling water. So water boils at 212 Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. And if you raise the temperature of the metal up to there and you put your hand near it, you would feel the heat on your hand. So that's
if you actually touched it, wouldn't it burn you at 200 or close?
Yeah, it would scald you. It wouldn't be blistering. It would be just scalding, kind of like this burn that I have right here. I was protecting my grandson from touching something hot, and so I sacrificed myself.
You're gonna learn one of these times.
Yeah. So, what does that
mean? Yeah. What does it mean?
Well, and that means the atoms in the metal are vibrating at a higher rate of speed. It's kind of like friction, right? You go like this with your hands and your hands get warm. Well, the atoms in the metal are vibrating faster because you've added heat to them, and the heat is a form of energy, right? So the higher the energy that you have, the more you radiate out. This is a really simple way of interpreting how energy works in the body. But in the body, it's not thermal energy, it's something else. And a lot of people call it a life force energy. So what that means is like all of the things that are moving in your body, so each of those, let's say 40 trillion cells, has 9 trillion chemical reactions in them every day. So each cell has 9 trillion chemical reactions happening.
And people don't think that we're a miracle. And people don't think they're enough. People don't think that there's something magic about themselves.
Yes, right. And it's really, really and truly miraculous that we have consciousness, and that we know that we are alive and that we will die, that we have this consciousness. That's even a bigger miracle. Imagine what it took to create that awareness in the cells that we have. Right.
And they call this life force energy, right? And
yes, you can call it that, and it's measurable by instruments, right?
That's what's fascinating to me.
Right. And so there were a series of measurements because people got curious. So they would measure what radiated off different levels of health, happiness, or whatever, and awareness. And that, really bright people whose brains were functioning really well and that were in the peak of health would vibrate between 70 and 80 megahertz. And mega is 1,000,000 and hertz is 1 time per second. So it's 70 to 80 million times per second vibration. That's a very high rate of vibration.
Certainly.
Right? And when somebody starts to get sick, then they would radiate at a lower level. Like instead of 70 to 80, it would be like 50 to 60. And when somebody had cancer, they would be down around 40. And people that were on the verge of dying would vibrate at 20. So it was 1/4 of the original value. Half gets you cancer, 1/4 you're on death's door.
Wow.
So when you say raise your frequency, it's not woo woo. It's real. The frequency.
It's important for your life.
Right? And there's different ways to do it. You don't need an energy healer to raise your frequency. You can do that all by yourself. And so some of the easiest ways to do it is to laugh more, find humor in things, just that joy and happiness will raise the frequency. So if you have somebody that's laughing or meditating or being mindful, it raises, or prayer. Prayer is another way because it's a form of meditation. That raises your frequency 10 to 12 megahertz. So that's the difference between getting sick and not getting sick, 60 to 70. That's the difference, okay?
What about just changing your physiology? You know, like I just felt myself sit up straighter as you were talking about this.
Right, that does that too. That's another way to do it. And taking some nice deep breaths, it calms you down. Anytime you stop having your adrenal glands firing, which means you're going from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, anytime you do that, you raise your frequency. Getting calm, happy brings you up. And when you're angry or sad or feeling guilty or depressed, it'll lower you by 10 to 12 points. So that's the difference between being well and being sick. And if you think about where you are with cancer to, being happy and meditating or praying relative to that, that's the difference basically between life and death.
And it's exactly in line with what a lot of spiritual and mindful energy healing communities do as well.
Right. So when you're exactly, and
we're
so
we're not alone in some vacuum here. We're not the only ones talking about this. There are communities.
But the great thing is that there's been enough scientific research where we're actually looking at, what do they mean by raise your vibration? Well, they're not, there's a lot of stuff that's misquoted. I'm the geeky scientist that doesn't like the misquotes, like, like the quantum healing. No, we're all quantum all the time. We're in the quantum space because, what quantum means is going down to atomic and subatomic sizes. And then all the physics that what we call Newtonian physics, all bets are off. Then we're getting into the relativistic, and we're getting into like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where you can't find atoms or you can't find electrons, within a certain space and things like that. All this very bizarre stuff starts happening, and it's stranger than fiction, that stuff.
Wow. So yeah, our reality is way stranger than fiction. And
yes,
I know that we wanted to keep this one a little shorter. Where can we wrap this up, or are we about the time that you wanted to wrap this
up?
Well, so what little nugget can we give for
Yes. So there's many types of energy healing. I just want to summarize. There's many types of energy healing, simple to complex. And the way I see people, so we talked about raising your frequency. The way I see people is that the core, people at their heart, are at a very high frequency level, because that's our divine being that's inside of us. That's what's running us. And, all the things we talked about, how you get to those low places, those low moods, feeling about ourselves, even bad, poor posture, all of that, that's like layers on top. And the way that I work is that I peel the layers off one at a time. And to me, it's like, you've got a pond and it's full of stuff, and you pull a layer off and then it comes up, and then you pull another layer off and then it comes up, and then you pull another layer off and then it comes up, and pretty soon the pond is clean, right? So it's this layer, all this, we're shedding the pain, the distress, the disease, and it takes a while. For the reason why I can't wave a magic wand and go poof, you're well, is that all of those things, like you said before, all of those things that took so long to acquire have to be rerouted energetically. So we have this energy system in the body. We know it very well. There's now scientific proof that it exists. Before, the doctors would say there's no physical structure in the body that relates to meridians, but there is now. And we know what it is. And we have this whole energy system, and it's been tested over and over again. And so what I do, for me, is I just reroute the energy.
to clarify, if someone doesn't know what that energy system is.
Yeah, so the acupuncture is done along meridians, and these meridians transfer energy from one point to another, and they need to flow. And what they correspond to physically is that the nerves come together in neck size. So you have like a conjoining of several intersections of nerves. So if you look, what we call a chakra is actually an energy portal, for example, and if you look on a physiological diagram, you have a system of nerves coming together, and all the nerve endings are here in the front in a bunch. And not only that, but you have a series of receptors there. And every single receptors, like endorphin receptors, for example, and they align along these meridians. And when you have a memory, and this was done in the 80s and the 90s, when you have a memory and it's a particularly traumatic, a lot of times it will store in those areas. And then when you go have acupuncture and they start stimulating that area, if you start thinking about things, those memories will pop up and you'll go, wow, I haven't thought about that in years. So it helps release that. So that's one form of energy healing. And what I do is I run energy and I start shifting. And you are all capable of doing it. You just have to learn how, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We all have the ability to do it. And you've been actually very instrumental in teaching a number of people how to do this kind of energy healing and energy medicine.
Yes. So what I do when I first approach somebody is test 19 different parameters: how open things are, how well it's flowing, how the brain is doing. A lot of times a traumatic brain injury, most of us have had them, will stop the flow of energy in the brain. And what we want to do is get that going again. And a lot of people have described it to me as they feel like some sort of black hole is filling in. And the thing that happens a lot of times is they'll tell me, wow, I haven't felt this awake and aware and confident and energetic in a decade or two. I didn't know I could feel that way again. And it's like all of a sudden everything lights up again. And the other thing that I do is that, this thing that we call spirit or our energy, if we start pulling it up towards our head, like if you're getting into one of those low energy emotions like guilt, shame, fear, anger, if you're in one of those places, what happens is that you're externally motivated, meaning you're worried about something going on outside you, and that pulls you in different directions. So it pulls you off center. So psychologically, that's being off center. When somebody says, are you centered or not? In the psychobabble terms, it actually means that something is physically happening in the body. So when I realign it, people go, wow, I didn't know I could feel this good, right? Yeah. Because they stop being that way.
Yeah, and having your spirit in your body, being embodied, right. It also removes a lot of pain. I know that
it does. It does
in that manner, and I experience that myself as well. Because we get up here, or either in our head, we're thinking about stuff, and we just come out of our body. And when you use that real simple technique to put us back in our bodies, and then teach us how to do it, it's so much more effective in life because your spirit's in your body, you're embodied.
Exactly. And so that's what, it's term centered. It's when you're internally motivated. Internally motivated means, is there a roof over my head? Am I okay? Then you can stop worrying. Do I have enough to eat? Do I have enough clothes to wear? Can I get from point A to point B when I want, how I want? Like those kinds of questions, those are the real fundamental questions, instead of worrying about what your mom thinks or what your husband thinks or what your child is doing. Instead, you're more focused on, I'm breathing, I'm alive, I'm happy, I'm here, and all of that. That centers you, right? Yeah. So that, right. And then a lot of people also ask me, I don't feel anything right now. Like some people get on the phone and they'll say, as soon as I picked up the phone, I was tingling from head to toe. That's about 5% of the people. Mm-hmm. Another third, if I start working in a particular area, they go, oh, I'm feeling something here, so they can feel where it is. And another third will start to feel a little warm towards and relax towards the end of the session. And then another third just doesn't plain old feel anything. But then
and
when
there are those that fall asleep too.
oh yes, I've had people fall asleep and snore on the phone. That's because their body is getting so relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, people say, well, I don't know if it's working. And I say, well, it's always working. And you can tell that the following week things have shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most common effect is that their brain wakes up, they can think clearly, decisions become easier. Instead of going, I don't know whether I should do A or B, instead they go, oh, I know my B is my path, forget A. They become confident, they're able to make decisions, they are, they're just a lot more aware of their surroundings because they become centered. And they get happier. And as soon as you get to those places, that means the body is actually healing.
Absolutely. I was working with a client, and she came to the call with a cough and said, she has all this grief that she's dealing with, and it's no wonder that your lungs are compromised. A doctor had told her that they were compromised, and because she was dealing with all this grief. And throughout the conversation, which was actually a fairly long one because it was an initial pre-assessment, she only coughed once. And I brought that to her attention. And I'm reminded on how, when you're sitting in a conference or on the plane, how people love sitting next to you because they just feel better just being in your presence. And I have that what's in my presence is also in my voice. So just having a conversation with people, the energy healing, the energy medicine starts working as long as the focus is and the intention is there to make that happen.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of decisions, for example, I had a gentleman come to me 2 years ago, and he was waffling for 8 months over 6 major decisions: whether to sell his business or keep it, what to do with the employees that were there, whether he was going to move to the West Coast or stay on the East Coast, whether he was going to continue seeing a woman that he admired in a lot of ways. But, she picked up and said, I'm moving to the West Coast. I don't know, you can come with me if you want. It's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, and his kids were on the East Coast, and she was on the West Coast, and he was just torn up in 10 different ways. And I didn't tell him about, a lot of people wanted to ask me advice. I want spiritual advice. And I go, I'm not in the spiritual advice business. I'm in the healing business. Well, he says, I'm not sick. And I go, well, you will be.
That's going to be incredibly draining. I mean, all those decisions hanging there waiting to be made, that literally drains your life force
right out of you. Talk about being off center. He was completely thrown for a loop. And inside of 4 weeks, he made all 6 decisions.
Fantastic.
Right. And I told him at the end, I said, you realize that you had been waffling for 8 months, and now in 4 weeks you've made and actually executed on all the decisions in a very short amount of time. And he did it with confidence, and now he's running a multi-million-dollar business. Boo-hoo.
Aww. If only that could happen to everyone, right?
I know. And another multi-millionaire came to me, and he wanted his diabetes, pulled back. And I've only seen him on 4 sessions. And not only is he on the way to he wanted to lose 80 pounds. Not only is he on the way to losing all of it, but he's like totally energized, totally active. He just put together a $10 million contract, and, it went boom, boom, boom really quickly. He's moving with confidence and with ease and with clarity. And he goes, I don't know whatever you got, but you really need to bottle it and sell it, and I go, yeah, I don't even know how to articulate what it is that I do, which is why I decided to talk about it in this, because I don't even know how to articulate it. It's just people feel really different. And this has happened especially lately because I keep working on myself. It's happened especially lately. Every single client's come back to me the following week and said, I can't believe it. I've been one of my new clients said, I've been floating for 10 years, not knowing what to do. And then in 3 sessions that totaled an hour and 15 minutes, she was able to make major life decisions, selling one business, moving on into something else, deciding what to do. She's going to write children's books, and she's going to illustrate them. She's like totally excited about it. Plus she wants to be a life coach, right? So she's got all of these things and she's doing them. She says, I've been sitting around for 10 years and now I'm doing them. You can't really put a value on that. You hear so many people talk about purpose and passion, but what is it really? A lot of people will go, okay, so I'm doing this questionnaire and I'm doing all of this, but until the brain starts working, because the first thing I do is heal the brain, until the brain starts working, until all the energy starts flowing in and out of you the way it's supposed to, it's really hard to figure out what it is you're supposed to do, because you don't even have the energy for it. You're just kind of going, yeah, oh well.
Yes, and underneath that, you have that drive and that desire because you have a purpose, and so you're beating yourself up, which is draining you even more. And so I would love to be able to connect people with you, how they can experience you or what you do for themselves and better yet, even learn it.
Right. So the first thing is anybody going to my website, scientifichealer.com, you can download some freebies. Like one of them is an 11-minute audio. And a lot of people come to me and say, that's the best audio I've ever listened to. It's brief and I feel completely refreshed after only 11 minutes. Because, an hour meditation, who has time for that? Not in this day and age. So I just said, okay, I'm going to do it fast. And everybody says, I can't keep up. No, you don't got to keep up. Your subconscious is really quick. And just listen to the music and relax. And it operates on 4 levels. And some of them are eye healing. I have one for pain, one for eye healing. Those aren't free, but people have come back and said that something more is happening than just the eye healing.
Yes.
So that's one way to sample it. The other way is to make an appointment with me at scientifichealer.com/appointment. And right now I am beginning a 2-year program. It's going to be broken down into 4-month segments. So at the end of each segment, you get certified to do a specific set of tasks. So I know a lot of healers that do only one thing. They clear DNA or they clear emotions. They just do one thing and they have full practices. One of my friends has, earns 20 to 30,000 every month, and she's booked 2 months in advance. So what could be better, right?
Yeah, what could be better than that? What is she clearing?
DNA, ancestral DNA, right? Wow. So, got it. So, connect with me by making an appointment, let me know, or just leave a message. I have my phone number on my website. You can just text that message. It's not likely I'll pick up, but sometimes I will. I don't have a name for it, but I'm looking for 6 more people. I have a bunch of appointments coming. I want to have a class of 12 people. So we have a core set of healers, some of which will continue on to heal. I have more requests than I can handle. I'll be able to pass that on to anyone who is certified. But we'll work closely together during that time.
Yeah, that's such an intimate size group, 12 people, and I know that you'll be delivering amazing content. I thank you so much for sharing all of the things that you've shared today, and thank you for being part of this movement to connect.
Yes. Oh, you're most welcome, Gwen. Yes. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Scientific Healing, and thank you, Gwen, for being my co-host. Let's you and I connect. Go to scientifichealer.com, clear-now to get your free, powerful relationship healing to energetically resolve past relationships or current ones. For those of you that are ready to get to a new place in your life, whether it's to help others or get better yourself, make an appointment with me at scientifichealer.com/appointment. Or if you're shy about that, just go to /contact and write me a note. If you enjoyed this program, give it a 5-star rating on iTunes, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. This is Dr. Anastasia Chopelas. Until next time.